In April 2025, Jaguar registered 49 vehicles across all of Europe, not 49,000. 49. It was a 97.5% year-over-year collapse for a name that once defined British automotive prestige. Jaguar's leadership had committed €120 million to a rebrand so radical it erased the company's social media history, launched an ad campaign without a single car, and attempted to rebuild a century of brand equity from nothing. This is the anatomy of how a legacy brand effectively deleted itself, and it begins with understanding what made Jaguar worth preserving in the first place. William Lyons founded what would become Jaguar in 1922, starting from a small workshop in Blackpool producing motorcycle sidecars. By 1935, the first car to bear the Jaguar name rolled out, a saloon that combined understated British elegance with performance that rivaled more established marques. Lyons' philosophy was direct, copy nothing. This approach shaped every decision from engineering to styling and became the company's unofficial motto. The XK120, introduced in 1948, stunned the automotive world. It was the fastest production car of its time, clocked at 120 miles per hour, and delivered a blend of speed and design that post-war Britain had never seen in a showroom. The XK120's reputation grew quickly, not just for its numbers, but for the way it looked and felt. A car that made a statement about its owner and the company behind it. In 1961, Jaguar launched the E-Type, a car that Enzo Ferrari called the most beautiful ever made. The E-Type's 3.8-litre engine and aerodynamic body allowed it to reach 150 miles per hour, but the real impact was cultural. Celebrities, musicians and business leaders wanted to be seen in a Jaguar. The brand became shorthand for British innovation and style, with Lyon's original vision echoing in every curve and detail. Jaguar's success wasn't limited to the road. Victories at Le Mans with the D-Type in the 1950s cemented the brand's reputation for performance, while its saloons offered refinement that appealed to executives and diplomats alike. By the 1960s, Jaguar had become a symbol of attainable luxury, an identity built on decades of engineering, design, and a refusal to imitate. The company's heritage was not just a marketing asset, it was the foundation of its global appeal and the anchor for everything that followed. By 2024, Jaguar's numbers told a story that could not be ignored. Global sales are contracted to just 67,000 units, a figure that put the brand well below rivals in the premium segment. In Europe, the collapse was even more dramatic. A 97.5% year-on-year decline left Jaguar with fewer than 400 registrations across the entire continent. These results were not a temporary dip, but a sustained downturn that had accelerated over several quarters. Industry analysts began to question whether the brand could still justify its place among luxury automakers. Margins came under pressure as well. Jaguar's gross margin, once a healthy 22.3% in 2023, slid to 15.9% by the end of 2024. The company faced a dual threat: falling unit sales and shrinking profitability. Dealers reported stagnant showroom traffic and inventory began to pile up. Incentives and price cuts intended to clear unsold models eroded the brand's premium positioning. Meanwhile, the costs of developing an all-electric platform and supporting the rebrand weighed heavily on the balance sheet. Jaguar Land Rover's own financials showed an overall margin drop from 19.8% to 16.4%, with Jaguar bearing the brunt of the decline. The broader context made the urgency even clearer. The luxury automotive market saw steady growth in electric and hybrid segments, but legacy brands that failed to maintain a clear identity struggled to compete. Competitors like Mercedes-Benz and BMW managed to grow both sales and margins by carefully blending heritage with innovation. Jaguar, by contrast, appeared caught between eras, no longer anchored by the symbols and narratives that once set it apart, yet not fully established in its new electric ultra-luxury role. Inside the company, these numbers drove a sense of crisis. The board faced mounting pressure to act, with stakeholders demanding a strategy that could reverse the decline. The sales collapse and margin squeeze left little room for incremental fixes. A drastic response was no longer a matter of ambition, but of survival. On the 12th of June 2024, Jaguar's future was decided behind closed doors. The board assembled in the main conference suite at JLR's Whitley headquarters, facing a set of financial projections and scenario models that left little room for ambiguity. The agenda was dominated by a single item, whether to approve the most radical transformation in the brand's history. The proposal, advanced by Chief Marketing Officer Anita Rahavan, drew on a lengthy strategy brief from Landor and Fitch and a risk-adjusted forecast from McKinsey that promised €300 million in EBITDA uplift if Jaguar abandoned its legacy and moved decisively into the ultra-luxury electric-first segment. The decision was not unanimous. The leaked minutes record a 9-2 vote in favour, with dissent coming from two directors who warned that stripping away the brand's heritage could accelerate customer churn and erode loyalty among high-value clients. Their concerns were noted in the official risk register, but the majority saw no viable alternative. The numbers on the table were stark. With margins shrinking and sales in freefall, incremental change was not an option. The board's majority argued that only a clean break, supported by a projected 15% uplift in brand equity and a 9% increase in electric vehicle sales by 2026, could justify the investment and satisfy Tata Motors' broader electrification mandate. By the end of the session, the vote had locked in a capital commitment of €120 million, pending final sign-off from Tata's Group Finance Committee. The formal approval triggered immediate next steps. Agency contracts would be executed, media budgets released, and the internal rollout scheduled for the autumn. For Jaguar, the 12th of June decision represented a point of no return. The board's mandate authorised a comprehensive rebrand, giving external partners the green light to erase decades of visual identity and reposition the marque as a contender in the ultra-premium electric market. The debate over heritage versus reinvention was closed, at least on paper. From this moment, Jaguar's course was set by a slim but decisive majority, with the brand's future now tied to the success or failure of its most ambitious gamble yet. A €120 million budget was unlocked within days of the board's decision, setting in motion the largest single rebranding effort in Jaguar's history. The procurement team moved quickly, finalising contracts with a quartet of external partners. Landor and Fitch took the lead on visual identity and brand architecture, tasked with translating the exuberant modernism vision into every touchpoint. Group M, under the WPP umbrella, was assigned €45 million for global media, responsible for building the media mix and optimising campaign reach across digital, out-of-home and experiential channels. McKinsey & Company returned as strategic advisor, overseeing scenario modelling and performance tracking that would determine if the new direction delivered on its promised EBITDA uplift. The fourth pillar of the agency roster managed internal rollout and dealer communications, directing €20 million toward training, manuals and the rapid overhaul of showroom environments. Each contract included strict key performance indicators. Landor and Fitch's fee structure was tied to a double-digit lift in global brand awareness, while Group M's media allocation could be rebalanced if cost per meal targets were missed. The business case set targets for a 10% increase in brand equity and a 9% rise in electric vehicle sales by 2026, with quarterly reviews scheduled to monitor progress. The agencies were briefed to execute a rapid, all-at-once transformation. New signage, digital assets and marketing collateral would be deployed globally within a 6-week window, starting with the internal rollout to 400 dealers in September. No mention appeared in procurement files or industry reporting of Accenture's Song as a core creative or branding partner. While some observers speculated about consulting involvement in digital or analytics support, the public record credits the creative and strategic direction to Landor and Fitch, Group M and McKinsey. The absence of Accenture Song from official disclosures and contract filings underscores the tight control Jaguar maintained over the narrative and execution of the rebrand. With the machinery now in motion, Jaguar's leadership placed a high-stakes BET on the ability of external partners and a 9-figure spend to erase the old identity and manufacture a new one. The gamble was not just financial but psychological. Could a legacy brand be rebuilt from the ground up, and would consumers accept the new story being sold to them? The answer would depend on how these resources were deployed and how the market would respond. Jerry McGovern arrived at Jaguar with a reputation for transforming brands, having steered Land Rover through its own reinvention. His presence inside Jaguar's executive suite carried a certain gravity, an implicit promise that a clean break could deliver the same results. Around him, a circle of agency strategists and consultants reinforced this belief, citing case studies where radical change had paid off. The boardroom became an echo chamber, amplifying the appeal of a fresh start and the idea that legacy could be traded for relevance. This mindset drew heavily on cognitive shortcuts. The halo effect, where McGovern's past successes lent automatic credibility to the new direction, meant that critical voices inside the company were quietly sidelined. Dissenting perspectives, especially those warning of heritage risk, were reframed as resistance to progress rather than legitimate business concerns. Behavioral research shows that under pressure, decision makers often default to heuristics. If a bold reset worked elsewhere, the logic goes it can work here too. The pressure for results compressed the debate into binary terms: evolve incrementally and risk irrelevance, or leap forward and seize the future. The creative brief that emerged from these sessions reflected this thinking. It called for a total departure from the past, instructing agencies to avoid any visual or verbal cues that might signal continuity. The brief's language leaned on terms like exuberant modernism and copy nothing, positioning the rebrand as both a break from tradition and a statement of intent. The assumption was that consumers would respond to novelty with curiosity and admiration, not confusion or loss. Inside the echo chamber, the risks of erasing familiar brand assets seemed manageable, abstracted into forecast models and mitigated by projected gains in brand equity. The psychological comfort of a blank slate overrode the evidence that consumers anchor their perceptions in continuity. As the creative brief circulated, it was clear that the company's next chapter would be shaped as much by internal belief as by external market realities. The stage was set for a public reveal that would test whether these mental shortcuts could withstand the scrutiny of the market. The public unveiling of Jaguar's new identity landed at Miami Design Week on November 11, 2024. The event, billed as a statement of intent, introduced the Type 00 concept alongside a full suite of redesigned brand assets. Every trace of the old leaping cat had been scrubbed from digital platforms in the hours leading up to the launch. Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook feeds were wiped clean, leaving only the new monogram and a cryptic hashtag copy nothing. By midday, Jaguar's website redirected visitors to a minimalist landing page displaying the new geometric wordmark against a backdrop of electric azure. The centerpiece of the campaign was a 30-second commercial that aired globally. Not a single car appeared on screen. Instead, the ad featured models in high-fashion outfits walking through empty cityscapes, the new monogram reflected in glass and chrome. The voiceover spoke of being the only one that matters, a line that left longtime fans searching for any reference to the brand's storied past. The absence of product was deliberate, an attempt to position Jaguar as a lifestyle brand first, automaker second. Critics were quick to seize on the omission. Within hours, social media lit up with memes and side-by-side comparisons of the old Leaper and the new logo. The hashtag Leave the Leaper began trending in the UK and US, fueled by legacy owners and automotive journalists who questioned the wisdom of erasing decades of brand equity. The spectacle drew outside commentary. Elon Musk, never shy about weighing in on industry moves, posted a single word on X, oof, in response to a viral thread dissecting the ad's lack of vehicles. His comment racked up tens of thousands of likes, amplifying the backlash and drawing mainstream media attention. Meanwhile, design blogs and branding experts debated the merits of the new visual identity, with some praising its boldness and others calling it a masterclass in alienating core customers. The Miami event and its digital aftershocks made one thing clear: Jaguar's leadership had committed fully to the blank slate approach. The erasure of the brand's history was not a side effect, but the main event. The question was no longer whether the market would notice, but how it would respond now that the transformation was complete. April of 2025 brought a number that left little room for debate. According to the European Automobile Manufacturers Association, just 49 new Jaguar vehicles were registered across all European Union member states that month. 1 year earlier, that figure stood at 1,961. The calculation is simple: a 97.5% year-on-year decline, the sharpest drop recorded by any premium marque in the region. For dealers, the impact was immediate and unforgiving. Showroom floors that once moved dozens of cars per month now sat empty. Internal reports from Jaguar's European network described near zero footfall, with sales staff redeployed or furloughed as inventory stagnated. Franchisees facing contractual volume targets began renegotiating or exiting their agreements altogether. The ACEA registration data was mirrored in Jaguar Land Rover's own quarterly statements, which confirmed the 49-unit figure and cited it as the basis for a downward revision in European sales forecasts. Analysts pointed to the mismatch between the new marketing message and the absence of available product, noting that the rebrand delivered a vision but left dealers with nothing to sell. The verdict, delivered in hard numbers, was clear. The market had turned away, leaving Jaguar's network to absorb the cost of a failed reset. The blank slate fallacy is a well-documented mental shortcut in business strategy, especially during times of crisis or transition. In behavioral science, this fallacy describes the belief that an organization can erase its accumulated identity and simply start over, assuming that consumers, employees, and the market will accept a fresh narrative without resistance. Decision makers often fall into this trap when pressured by negative results or disruptive market forces. The logic is seductive. If the old brand is not working, wipe it clean and build something entirely new. But research into consumer psychology shows that people anchor their perceptions in familiar symbols, stories, and experiences. Abruptly removing these cues can create confusion, skepticism, and even active rejection. To avoid the blank slate fallacy, experts recommend a 3-step checklist for strategic decisions. First, identify which visual or verbal elements are proven to add value. These are the assets that drive recognition and loyalty. Second, test whether these elements can be evolved or adapted rather than discarded. Third, ask whether the proposed changes honor the emotional and historical connections that customers have with the brand. If the answer at any step is to replace everything, the decision is likely driven by restart bias rather than sound analysis. This framework equips leaders to distinguish between genuine innovation and the risky impulse to start from zero. In Jaguar's case, the evidence suggests that the desire for a radical break overrode the discipline of incremental evolution. The result was a brand story that felt unfamiliar to its core audience, with measurable consequences in the marketplace. The blank slate fallacy is not just a theoretical risk, it is a recurring pattern with real financial and reputational costs. In today's hyper-competitive market, a brand's legacy isn't just baggage, it's capital. When leadership trades identity for reinvention, the market's verdict is swift and unforgiving. Jaguar's collapse reminds every business that brand equity, once lost, is nearly impossible to reclaim. In the pursuit of relevance, erasing heritage risks erasing value itself. What's left is not reinvention, but a warning. Share your perspective in the comments below.